Staring through the looking glass, your thoughts upon greener grass. It seems as though the writing's on the wall. But it's the things you contemplate.
Hey everybody, welcome to Music Makers. This show is all about original music and the artists that make that original music. My name is Deb Reimer, and I'd also like to introduce you to my co-host, AJ Papp.
Hello.
Today's guest is a wonderful artist, singer, songwriter, guitar player, Mr. Brett Smith Daniels. We're looking forward to hearing all about his original music and hearing some of those tunes that he plays.
I know who I am. Do you know who you are? Living in an echo chamber. Did we take it too far? I don't hold a grudge, 'cause negativity sucks. I'm just trying to live my life and get by amongst other stuff. But we're arguing with strangers, spending too much time on the phone. When are we gonna wake up from this psychosis? We're closer than we've ever been before to the end of the world. Does anybody know what I mean? It's like the wars in our brains. I think the world's gonna sink. But you can line me up and shoot me if you think I'd be game to go and die for your cause, whichever side you are for. Did we learn nothing from the wars our grandfathers fought? And we're arguing with strangers, spending too much time on the phone. When are we gonna wake up from this psychosis? We're closer than we've ever been before to the end of the world. Does anybody really this psychosis? We're closer than we've ever been before to the end of the world. Does anybody know what I mean?
Good one, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Really enjoyed that song, Brett. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're originally from the UK.
Yes, yeah.
And I'm wondering, it's a long road from the UK to Canada, and particularly here. So I'm wondering what led you here?
Well, my mum's Canadian, so I spent quite a bit of my childhood going back and forth between Victoria and the south of England. And then when I was 19, I met a young lady out here, and it didn't work out, but I spent a long time going back and forth again, just like I did as a kid, and eventually moved out here for her, which was probably a mistake in hindsight.
We're glad you're here, though.
I'm glad I'm here too.
As am I. You said you're going back and forth to the UK quite a bit.
Yes, yeah. No, I'm back in December, and going to be there for a month, and been back and forth to Los Angeles quite a bit recently as well. But I live in Victoria nowadays. Yeah.
Fabulous. So good of you to perform for us.
Thank you.
I love the song.
Thank you.
Yeah. Deb?
What can you tell us about that song? How did it come to be?
I'm a massive David Bowie fan, and I'm not sure if you could hear in that particular piece, but I borrowed from the chord progression from the song Life on Mars. I watched an interview with David Bowie once where he said that he borrowed that chord progression from Frank Sinatra when he'd been asked to write as a staff writer for Frank Sinatra on the song My Way. And he got booted off the writing team and ended up writing Life on Mars as a revenge. So what I did was took some of the chord progression from Life on Mars and used one of the themes, When I'm 64, Will I Be Living on Mars, as a reference. And then took that same progression in a different direction yet again, as Bowie had done with Frank Sinatra's progression, And I did that because I thought it might be kind of nice to reference one of those artists that I look up to. And obviously there's that Beatles reference as well, When I'm 64. The personal reasons behind the song are, well, it's a breakup song, but you know, the sort of musical and lyrical content try to tie into the works of my heroes as well, you know.
Excellent.
Yeah. Now you've, so David Bowie is obviously a huge influence in your music,
Massive.
but I'm sure there's others.
Yes, yeah. No, I love the Beatles, the Stones, Guns N' Roses, Queen, Hendrix, and you know, more modern like indie bands like OK Go and Arctic Monkeys. You know, just all over the shop really. And
Huge Stones fan, huge.
Absolutely.
yeah.
Well, thanks. That was really interesting to hear
Thank
about
you.
that.
Yeah, you're going to perform for us again?
Absolutely.
I'd love it.
Look in the mirror. What do you see? A land of hope and opportunity. Dreams they have faded, just getting by. Was I too preoccupied with getting high? Just say, yeah, is this the end of the world? Did we go too far? When I'm 64, will I be living on Mars? Say, yeah, is this the end of the world? Did we go too far? When I'm 64, will I be living on Mars? Aren't you a posture, hollow a frame? In all honesty, I couldn't handle the fame. But days they are turning, life's going by. And here I am, preoccupied with getting by. Say, yeah, is this the end of the world? Did we go too far? When I'm 64, will I be living on Mars? Say, yeah, is this the end of the world? Did we go too far? When I'm 64, will I be living on Mars?
Brett, you've got a new album coming out, which
do.
we're all really excited about. And I know for a fact that you've got some real heavy hitters that are working with you on that album. Can you just tell us a little bit about it? Who's involved? What can we expect from your upcoming album?
Absolutely, yeah. So the upcoming album's called Disenchanted Youth, and the collaborators include Matt Sorum from Guns N' Roses, Dan Konopka from OK Go, Bjorn England from Quiet Riot, and I've spoken to Mickey Moody from Whitesnake about possibly guesting as well. I had a couple of drinks with Stuart Copeland from The Police the other night, and I may have asked, whilst under the influence of an unmentionable substance, that he play on the record, and he did express some interest. I'm fingers crossed that that comes to fruition. You know, things sometimes do, they sometimes don't, but he seemed pretty interested, so I'm holding out hope for that as well. That could be quite fun.
When is it coming out?
Don't know yet. I've got to go back down to Palm Springs to finish the tracks that Matt's going to be working on. That's all kind of happened as a result of a trip down to Los Angeles last week. I was supposed to be recording with Dan Konopka from OK Go on the second half of the record, because he's already done the first half. And got down to LA. First night there, Dancing with the Stars bought my studio time out from under me. They
Damn.
paid 7 times as much money as I could for the space. And so I went for brunch the next day with Dan, and we're brainstorming ideas and couldn't really figure out how to make it work with his schedule. And so I text Bjorn Englund, who I first met back in June, whilst wandering down Sunset Boulevard with a beer in a paper bag. And I kind of stumbled up to him and asked where I could find a taxi. And then he goes, you know, I'm Bjorn Englund from Quiet Riot, right? And I went, great, where can I find a taxi? Can I grab your phone number?
That's a great story.
And so Bjorn, he's playing bass on the record, and he obviously knows a lot of people. He passed me on to Brent Woods from Chevy Metal, which is Taylor Hawkins' other band, and he'd just come out of rehearsal for the whole Taylor Hawkins tribute thing down at the LA, I think it's the Forum they're playing at. And unfortunately, he couldn't find a studio that was free during Dan's available time. So my next thought, after a couple of bevies at the hostel that night, was text Matt, ask what he's up to and see if he might be into it. Because I first met Matt about 5 years ago at the NAMM convention, and he was really kind. He gave me some really good feedback and also a great testimonial for my website. And he kind of said something along the lines of, come back in 5 years, you're a bit young right now, I want you to prove to me that you actually mean that you're serious about this, and you know, remember that I was 30 by the time I got into Guns N' Roses, which obviously, you know, I'm 26 now, so I'm still a little bit ahead of that in terms of age, but nowhere near that in terms of career, so we're on track.
That's a great story, and I'm really looking forward to your next song, so let's turn it over to you to show us your stuff that's coming up on the album. Thanks.
It sounds like a great album. I can't wait for that.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Still don't know what they've been fighting for. From the skies, their rockets fall. Many casualties now on both sides. Behind religion, they both hide. And how did this become? Right into school, behind the barrel of a gun. And if there was a God, would he not cry to see his children fighting wars eye for eye? It seems we've been blinded. It seems we've forgotten what we're told that you are preach. All views one-sided, with no consideration for the lives that you have reached. Hatred fires across arbitrary lines, while the minds of human beings live in fear just for their lives. And politicians score their points upon the stand with contempt for disregard for their fellow man. And how did this begin? Right into school behind the barrel of a gun. And if there was a God, would he not cry to see his children fighting wars eye for eye? It seems we've been blinded. It seems that we've forgotten what we're told that you are preach. All views one-sided, with no consideration for the lives that you have reached. It seems we've been blinded. It seems that we've forgotten what we're told that you are preach. All views one-sided, with no consideration for the lives that you have reached. We've been blinded. We've been blinded.
So Brett, as you're going through and talking about all these people and places and your songwriting, you must have some highlights, and I'm wondering what some of the more exciting parts of your career have been.
Probably got 2 or 3. I can't pick one off the top of my head, but one of them would have to be, I played a gig with Randy Bartman a few years ago, and we were playing the song Taking Care of Business, which obviously I loved growing up, and your guys' generation,
We all know
obviously. I'd been kind of briefed before the gig, you know, Randy's going to take the solo and all that, and he looked over at me and he goes, "Your turn." And they're going, whoa, okay. You
weren't expecting that.
No, I wasn't expecting it, but it was a bit of a rush. One of the other most exciting moments, I think, for me was last March. I had the good fortune of being featured on the Johnny Walker Rock Show on BBC Radio 2. And,
oh wow!
That was a real highlight for me because it's the biggest rock show in Europe, and Johnny frequently interviews Brian May and like all these people that I look up to, and they had Alice Cooper as the guest host that day, and I was just sat there going, I'm not worthy. I'm a pub musician. This is like way out of my league. But and then the third one would be when I stepped out on stage at Hermosillo, Sonora. It would have been about 6.5 years ago now, for the Festival del Petit, which was my first big festival as an original artist with my old band, the Villanovas, and we'd been flown out. We're a pub band from London at that point because we were living in South London, and my agent had kind of come in, looked at us in the pub and gone, "Oh, you're going to headline the festival," and we're going, "Who else is headlining?" They're, "Oh, Earth, Wind and Fire, no biggie," and we're like, "How are we going to?" That doesn't add up, but okay. So we got flown out, like BA business class, and put up in a hotel room, and we had a driver and a chauffeur, and it was like really unusual for me because I'm used to, like, you know, at that point in my career, like, here's 50 quid and you're lucky if you get a beer at the end of the night. And you know, we got out on the stage, and when we first showed up, there was nobody in the audience. And my big fear was that we would have come all the way from the UK to Mexico, set up on this incredibly large festival stage, you know, as the headliner the night before an actual established act, and it would flop. We showed up, you know, on stage about an hour later. We'd been backstage enjoying a pre-drink for the gig, and walked out, and there were like 6 or 7 something thousand people there. And it was just the biggest rush of adrenaline I've ever had in my life. It was great. You know, I'm a bit of a performance adrenaline junkie, and I definitely think that just seeing that many people like happy to be out, and also being able to get people to respond to original music in that way was just such a highlight for me. You know,
Nice.
Yeah.
That's a great story. You know, this show is all about original music and the process that people go through to write songs, and I think everybody approaches writing differently, and I know you've got another song for us.
Absolutely.
Before we get to that song, I just wanted to ask you, what is the process that you do go through to write your tunes?
To be honest, it's different for every song, but I find I write lyrics quite a lot. Like, I just sort of sit and think introspectively, and I like to try and tie together themes of, you know, politics and world events and stuff with personal experiences, and try and hide personal experiences in abstract ways so as not to be too vulnerable. And it tends to work quite well lyrically, because the song could be a double or even triple entendre sometimes, and that's something that I kind of am pretty proud of as a songwriter, because if you don't hear a personal undertone in it the first time, then I've done my job. As far as music goes, it can usually come after a couple of lines of lyrics. I just start hearing a melody and then sit down with a guitar and play some chords, and one thing leads to another, you know. It just kind of comes out of nowhere. But it's usually 3 or 4 in the morning, and after a gig, or whilst I'm doing the dishes, or something really inconvenient that you know, I'm not supposed to be doing that, and whenever I'm not supposed to be doing that, it ends up coming. So, yeah.
Interesting. You had mentioned Randy Bachman, and there's a story about his Gretsch. Did he happen to have the Gretsch guitar with him?
He didn't. No, this was this is back in like 2019. It's quite funny, really. I met Randy over dinner in London. About summer 2018. His son Tao, obviously I'm friends with, and Tao had reached out to me and asked me if I knew anyone that could introduce him to Ray Davies from the Kings. I don't know how he knew that I would know someone, but I did. His name's Ben Waters. He's like a kind of like an uncle type figure to me, and he just played on Ray's album, and I looked at you know, that, and so I took Tao down there, and as a thanks, we went for dinner with Randy. It was bizarre.
Fantastic.
It's a great story.
It is a great story. Thank you very much. Looking forward to the next song.
I'm just a dreamer who didn't go to school. I'm just a nice kid who broke all the rules. And now I'm lost and out of control. I thought I met my soulmate at the age of 19. She made me realize it's possible to dream, but we got lost on that path together. Now I'm so afraid of the future, what it holds. I thought she'd always be there for me, and she's so afraid of the future, what it holds. She thought I'd always be there for her. I hoped we'd get married a couple of years from now. Couldn't afford a ring, but I'd get one somehow. Singing love songs to the lonely, and I'd prop up the bar after 6 nights hard work, a pint in one hand with a grin and a smirk. 'Cause with her I was never lonely, but we're so afraid of the future, what it holds. The casualties of the news, and we're so afraid of getting old. What happens when I don't have you? What happens when I don't have you?
So kind of you to join us. Thank you again.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.
If we want to find out more about you, where might we find some more information about you?
It's just www.brettsmithdaniels.com.
Fabulous. We'll put that up on the screen. And of course, I'd like to extend our thanks to the volunteers behind the cameras who you never see, but they do a great job for us. And also John in the control room. John, thank you. And Deb, our
Thanks,
first
AJ.
music makers.
Don't forget, we're going to be back next time for more Music Makers. Tune in and join us for a great time. Thanks.
Looking glass, your thoughts upon greener grass. It seems as though the writing's on the wall. It's the things you contemplate. This month's start to amalgamate. grows longer by the hours as they fall. The grape begins to congregate, and all the shades and forms it takes to rid us of the things we're understood. The myth of fortune takes its toll, self-described unstoppable. The promised land they sold you is dead. And as the madman run the asylum, your mind begins to flow. So is there a meaning to life here on earth? Or should we let it go? An apple's fall at Newton's feet. He stumbles to the nearest street to tell us what goes up must come down. They label him a lunatic, tell him science is for heretics, and calculus is useless when you're poor. And as the madman run the asylum, your mind begins to flow. Is there a meaning to life here on earth? Or should we let it go? And as the madman run the asylum, your mind begins to flow. Is there a meaning to life here on earth? Or should we let it go?